Okay, I'm finally back with another Mr. Man reading. And sorry about a couple months uploading on this channel. This story is called Mr. Uppity, and let's get straight into it. But in the US, it's actually called Mr. Snooty, and why'd they change his name? So let's get straight into it. This is the story about Mr. Uppity and how he finishes the story about not quite so uppity as the beginning of the story. You see, Mr. Uppity was one of the rudest people in the world, if not the rudest. He was rude to anybody and everybody. So, of course, in Big Town, which is where he lived, he had no friends at all. Not one. Miserable Uppity, they used to call him, and they certainly looked it. Now, as well as being rude, Mr. Uppity was also rich. Very rich. One of the richest people in the world, if not the richest. He had the longest limousine in Big Town. He had the longest garden in Big Town. He had, on top of the hill in the middle of Big Town, the most enormous house. The biggest house in Big Town. There he lived all alone. Miserable Uppity. One day, Mr. Uppity was walking through the gardens of his enormous house when suddenly he heard a voice. A little voice. "Hello," said the voice. Mr. Uppity looked, and there, in one of his hundreds of flowers, is a goblin. "Are you going to say hello to me?" asked the goblin. "Go away," said Mr. Uppity rudely. "Oh, I know who you must be," said the goblin. "You must be Mr. Uppity who's rude to everybody." Sniffed Mr. Uppity rudely. "Well, I know somebody who wants to meet you," said the goblin, and skipped off the way goblins do. "Come on," he called over his shoulder. Mr. Uppity curiosity got the better of him. He followed. "In there," said the goblin, pointing at a small hole in the tree. "Don't be silly," snorted Mr. Uppity. Why is he so rude? Okay. "Oh, I'm not being silly," said the goblin. "Yes, you are," snapped Mr. Uppity. I can't possibly get in there." "Aha," sniffed the goblin. Smelled the goblin, and there he said a magic word known to goblins, which sounded like wobbly gobbly gook, or something like that. Suddenly, Mr. Uppity started shrinking. He shrank, and he shrank, until he's exactly the same size like this goblin. "Turn me back to my proper size at once," spluttered Mr. Uppity in a rage. "Shan't," grinned the goblin. And so saying, the goblin climbed through the hole into a tree. Poor Mr. Uppity didn't know what to do, so he followed him. Inside the tree, there was a staircase going down and down. Do you know where it led to? It led directly into the kingdom of the goblins. That's where. "I demand to be taken immediately to whoever's in charge," said Mr. Uppity angrily. "Oh, you shall," grinned the goblin. And he led Mr. Uppity through the streets of the kingdom of the goblins until they came to a palace. "Ho! Who goes there?" cried the goblins through the gate. "I have brought Mr. Uppity," said the goblin. "Oh," said the sentry and smiled. This book is too explosive. The goblin and Mr. Uppity passed through the gates and into the courtyard. And through some gates and a long corridor and through a large gold doors and into a huge room. There, sitting on a gold throne, was the king of the goblins. "Your Majesty," announced the goblin, bowing low, "may I present Mr. Uppity?" "Ah," said the king, "so you're the fellow who goes about being rude to everybody who doesn't have any friends." "Nonsense," said Mr. Uppity, rudely. "I can't see whatever is true," said the king. Look at the indignant Mr. Uppity. "You're much too puffed up at your own importance. Therefore," he said, "I'm allowed to turn it to your proper size. But when you get back to Big Town, if you're rude to everybody else, You immediately should have been decised though. Do you understand? The goblin then took Mr. Uppity back to the kingdom of the goblins. And the staircase, and out the tree at the bottom, Mr. Uppity, his gardens. The goblin looked at Mr. Uppity and said something which sounded like "Kookly blah," or something, which is wobbly gobbly gook. Said backwards, 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 and Mr. Uppity grew back to his original size. Now remember what the king said, warned the goblin. Don't be so uppity in the future. Mr. Uppity marched off fiercely to his enormous house. The following day, Mr. Uppity was out walking through the streets of Big Town. Suddenly, he came across a little boy playing with the ball. Get out of my way, snapped Mr. Uppity rudely. But as soon as he said it, do you know what's going to happen? Yes! Mr. Uppity shrank until he's no bigger the ball the boy was playing with. Oh dear, he gasped. He thought. I'm sorry, he said to the boy. What I meant to say was, please can I get past? Immediately, Mr. Uppity grew to his original size, the boy moved, and Mr. Uppity went on his way. Then he met an old lady carrying a large shopping basket. She was late for the markets. Excuse me, she said to Mr. Uppity. Can you tell me the time, please? No, said Mr. Uppity rudely. The suit said, you know what happens? Yes, Mr. Uppity shrank until he could easily have fitted the old lady's basket. Oh dear, he said. He gasped that he saw. I'm sorry, he said to the old lady. What I meant to say was, it's 25 past 11. Immediately, Mr. Uppity grew his original size, and the old lady thanked him. And Mr. Uppity went off. What else is next? Then he went back and saw a newspaper from the man standing in front of his street in Big Town. He was just about to walk away. And suddenly he stopped and thought. He turned back to the man and said, thank you. Thank you were the two words Mr. Uppity had never used before. The man smiled. A smile was something Mr. Uppity wasn't used to anything. Then Mr. Uppity was stopped by a man who asked him if he'd tell his way to the bank. Mr. Uppity was about to say no, and then he thought. Yes, he said to the man. Thank you, said the man. Thank you were the words Mr. Uppity only had never used before. Words had never said before. Mr. Uppity smiled. He felt happy. Happy was a feeling Mr. Uppity wasn't used to feeling. He liked it. And you know, from this day forward to this day backward, Mr. Uppity is a changed person. He's still the richest person in Big Town. Perhaps the richest person in the world. And now he has a lot of friends. And he smiles a lot. And he never gets that shrinking feeling. And you know which words Mr. Uppity uses most of all these days? Please and thank you. So, whatever we'd like to say is, thank you for reading this story. And you ever think about being rude to somebody? Please keep a sharp lookout for goblins. Why is it feisty? What is that story to? I mean, that is except for something Rugrats. Why does this ever happen to myself? Mr. Uppity is actually rude. Fun.